Ladies and gentlemen, if you followed chess at all, you're probably familiar with some very big names. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura. Maybe you know me, GothamChess. Maybe you follow Garry Kasparov, former world champion and arguably the GOAT. Well, guess what? There's a new player all of you should know, and his name is Frank. Frank mostly plays chess in short-form content. Frank is rated literally 100 ELO in Blitz. I recently covered one of Frank's matches, and the full video was uploaded to my second channel, Gotham Clips. It didn't go too well for Frank, but he's very funny, and he's British, and he yells the word cheeky a lot. Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you the results of my first chess lesson with Frank. I gave Frank a chess lesson in a Twitch stream a couple of days ago. Let me know in the comments if you want me to upload the entire thing. And I'm gonna show you how Frank has ascended as a chess player after just one lesson. Not only did he ascend as a chess player, he took on his arch nemesis in a rematch and won the game with a shockingly high accuracy score. This is the before. This is how Frank played chess before we did a lesson. He played e5, and by the way, this is gonna be a funny video, but you're actually gonna learn a lot. So I don't know if that's your objective, but you're gonna learn a lot. Frank used to always bring out his queen. All right, you see, Frank's like a lot of beginners. He knows that the queen is a high value piece, and he was bringing it out very early in the game, trying to deliver mates. The problem is against the good player, and in this case, Orbital Racer, who's quite a good chess player, I have to tell you, very, very advanced beginner, was doing quite well, even though he wasn't always playing the best moves. D4. Frank was capturing, and you see his opponent was playing principled chess. 2 pawns in the center, castling early. Frank was still moving his knights out to the edge of the board, all right? Knight c6 was all right, but if you let Frank loose in the middle game, it would be game over. As you can already see, he's obtained a dead loss position in 8 moves. So his opponent played bishop e3, he defended, and what a lot of beginners do when they're sort of left unattended is what a toddler would do is if they were left unattended, they would fall into a swimming pool face first and probably drown, or walk off a cliff, or shove a fork into an outlet, or pull down a gigantic mirror at a department store on themselves. So Frank plays b5, losing a pawn, Orbital captures, and after the move bishop a4, Frank hangs a knight. So Frank doesn't castle, he just hangs the knight in one move. And when Orbital plays knight to d5 instead, throwing in an attack on his queen, Frank rotates his queen to a square it can be captured, proceeds to lose basically all of his pieces, and get brutally checkmated on the back rank. This is how Frank played chess before he met yours truly. I gave him one chess lesson, and then he challenged somebody who beat him in a match 10-1. You see, Frank played a blitz match against Orbital Racer because they have pretty big followings in the short-form content world. For the people who are a bit older and don't follow TikTok, don't follow much of YouTube Shorts, there's a whole audience out there of young chess players and just young people in general who got into chess via this kind of more goofy chess area. Now, when I covered this match, Frank Orbital Racer, I had 20,000 live viewers. That's insane. There are many grandmasters in the world that have never had 20,000 people watch their match live. This is the result of Frank doing a chess lesson with me and taking his chess a little more seriously. First of all, notice it's a 10-minute game. So his rating in Rapid is actually 400. It's not 100. Now, Frank is a principled man, and he puts 2 knights in the center like he's supposed to. This is exactly how you're supposed to play a chess game. Now, his opponent actually loses the pawn on e5, which is a very, very common beginner mistake. For some reason, beginners just sort of like arbitrarily develop pieces, but don't realize why they're doing it. Like they just think, oh, pawn in the center, knights, bishops, I have to castle. They don't realize that pieces are interacting. So knight takes pawn is actually something we will add to Frank's toolbox. That's just a free pawn. Now, Frank got into the habit of playing d3 because I told Frank you got to put 2 pawns in the center if possible. But, now he's blocking in his bishop. So this is something that we're going to have to correct. You don't want to block either of your bishops. So the light squared bishop should come out, and then you should play the d-pawn. Now, black already can start taking advantage here. He can play a move like knight to g4. He doesn't do that. He plays d6. And Frank trades off the bishops. Okay, I don't hate this. All right, I do not hate this at all. But again, if you have an opportunity, you need to play bishop e2 and castle. Like, you should try to get castled and then 2 pawns in the center. But Frank is a good student. So Frank knows 2 pawns in the center. Like Gotham told me, I got to put 2 pawns in the center. Let's do it. His opponent obliges. And Frank, now, maybe a couple of weeks ago, would have played knight to g5 and hung his queen, would have played e5. e5's not a good move because your king is still in the center. You don't want to open up that position. You do not want to open up the center of the board if your king is still in the center. In this position, Frank plays bishop to d3 and castles. This is big boy stuff. This is big boy stuff by Frank the Tank Woodley. All right? Castling. And now white, as far as I'm concerned, is better. I know the computer says black is better. I like white's position because white has more center space. And when the knight moves, white is going to happen to open file. Now, keep in mind, this is a man. Frank is playing a person that beat him 10-1. Imagine playing a friend and they beat you 10 out of 11 games. You're obviously going to be psychologically rattled. Watch how Frank ascends in this game. C5 played by black. And Frank here locks the center with d5. Not a bad move. Now, the computer wants him to now play e5 because if pawn captures, there is just pawn captures and pressure on the knight. But I don't hate this move at all. His opponent finishes development. And in this position, there's a clip. I actually uploaded it today where I was yelling that if Frank has any future in chess, it's to play the move h3. Why? Because sometimes in chess, you just can't do too much. You just can't do too much. Like in every position in chess, you have to look for checks, captures, attacks. In this position, white has none of those. White has no checks, white has no captures, and white has nothing they can attack, because if they go here, there's e5. So, well, I mean, except h3. But you have to think of a way to improve your positions. How do you improve your position? Either pawns or pieces? Well, I would maybe consider queen d2 and something like this, or maybe with pawns. I love h3. I don't love the next move, but for this level, it's fine. g4. You don't really want to push pawns in front of your king, but in this case, I don't mind. We're running the black pieces out of town. The reason why these pawn moves are not that great is because they're overextending. And Frank does not realize 3 pieces are actually staring at that. Now, as you improve as a beginner, you're going to get better at drawing mental arrows that your opponent's pieces have as well. Like, oh, my opponent's pieces are all targeting the e4 pawn. Maybe I shouldn't, induce more attacks on my e4 pawn, but that's okay. And, actually, orbital goes here. Now, here things start to get a little dicey, all right? And in every chess game, you're going to be winning and you're going to be losing. Okay, maybe you're not always going to be winning, but you're probably going to be losing. Frank plays the move knight h4, all right? This is already the beginning of the end. Frank is slipping up once again, overextending. This knight used to guard that pawn, and the knight went here and relinquished defense of that pawn, and now black immediately swoops in, queen takes g5, and Frank is on the ropes. Frank, once again, will succumb to the pressure of his opponent, much like Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. But Frank sees that after the check and the attack on the knight, he can drop his knight back. In this position, Orbital Racer plays knight to e5, moving forward like the Terminator, absolutely unafraid of anything. Frank now plays knight b5, looking to create a little bit of counterplay on the position. And Orbital Racer makes a mistake. He spent a little bit of time. He played knight f4. He thought, that's it. I'm moving in for the kill. And he blundered. And Frank played the move knight to b5 with the intention of landing a fork or a capture of a pawn. His opponent went here, and a lot of beginners would see the attack on the knight and try to defend it. Or they would just miss that that's a threat at all because they're 400. Frank thinks and takes the knight in 20 seconds. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. He's taken a knight. Now, at this level of chess, being up a knight means literally nothing. When I say literally nothing, I mean literally nothing. It's not the first mistake in chess that kills you. The best analogy I can give to you comes from a book I read called Art of Learning. Imagine you are crossing the street. Some of you live in a town of 500 people. You never have to worry about this. It's all horses. You live in a town where no cars have been invented yet. But I live in New York City. And imagine you're crossing the street and you nearly get hit by a car. Now, what can you do? You can either go, oh my gosh, I'm caught in the middle of the intersection. Let me get across. Or you can yell at the driver. You can yell at the driver for nearly hitting you and get actually hit by a car. The second mistake is what kills you in chess. The first mistake is knight f4, and you go, oh my God, what have I done? All right? But it's the second mistake. When you cannot refocus yourself, you cannot compose yourself. And in this position, Orbital trades bishops, which is a knight for bishop. You should not trade when you're losing. And then the haymaker from the heavens, a6. And he completely misses. Knight to c7. It's not the first mistake that kills you. It's the second and even the third. And Frank is up a full rook. Oh my goodness, against his arch nemesis. A man who defeated him 10-1. Now, how do you win a winning position in chess? How do you know you're winning? Material. You're up a rook. How do you capitalize on this? You need to bring your material into the game. You need to make it felt. You need to use your material. Your pawns here build a fence for your position, repelling the enemy forces from infiltration. Trade the queens. Bring in the rook. Trade a few pawns on this side of the board. Frank immediately blunders. Immediately blunders, giving up not just a pawn, but also allowing the black rook into the game. A moment ago, the black rook was staring into nothing. Now it's staring into everything. And Frank now plays rook g4. I don't hate this move, but he's got to activate his rook in the corner of the board. We have queen to f5, knight to h4, and Frank grabs the bishop. I love this move. Now black is down to a rook and a queen versus a queen and a rook and another rook. Now, what do you do here with white? Don't even hesitate. Bring the queen. Or bring the queen up and bring the rook over. You need to use the material. I hate Frank's next move. And you'll notice, look at Frank's time management. Down to 5:30, down to 4:30. He's down 2.5 minutes on the clock. I am nervous watching this game. The move h4 has destabilized the move rook g4. Now, what I would have wanted to see here from Orbital when you're down a rook is you want to take as many pawns as you want. You don't want to make too many trades, and g5 is a massive mistake. Why is it a massive mistake? Because you're trading rooks. This is not what you want. This is not what you want. Because now you only have a queen. You needed a little bit more firepower. However, Frank is in a very bad spot because Orbital has now won 3 pawns for a rook. That's 3-5. That's only a 2-point material advantage. And I got bad news for you. This rook still has not moved. And I got even worse news for you. If Frank plays queen to e2, he's no longer even better. He's lost. Because it took him so long to activate his rook, the king on the back rank is completely weak. Here, the chess gods smiled upon Frank as he completely unknowingly played a fantastic move, which is queen to g4. Frank, in no way, shape, or form, saw that this was an idea and that he was going to block. I would bet some hundreds of dollars on it. But neither did his opponent. Queen takes d3 would have given black 4 pawns for the rook. But black is still lost because the rook will gobble everything. Black went here. Now, I love Frank's next move. He does not get distracted. Here comes the rook. This is a hero move from Mr. Frank. Rook to e1 is a brilliancy in and of itself because he's activating his rook. Pawn to g6. Rook down to e8 check. Now, the only thing you need to be careful about here on a board with your king so open is long diagonal checks. Your king needs to be safe from checks. Or at least your king needs to be safe from checks that are going to fork the king and the rook. Your rook and queen always need to work together. In this position, pawn takes c4 played. And now Frank needs to play queen e4. He needs to connect the queen and the rook so he never has any problems. He plays b4. I don't like this move. He gets passanted in his own words. Now, a takes b3, queen b3. White no longer has any pawns on the board. He can only give checks. And Frank, after some long thought, finds queen to d4. He spent 38 seconds. That was the only check that he had, and he lands at queen d4 check. Now, f6 on the board, and here Frank needs to find rook e7. Why does he need to find rook e7? Because if the king goes out here, it's mate. If the king goes out here, it's mate. The only move here that does not get mated with queen takes pawn is king g8, and this is still going to be checkmate in a few moves, and you'll notice the queen guards the rook. And both of these pieces can come back at any time to guard the king. The king could also probably end up running. But after f6, queen takes d6 happened. With 2 minutes on the clock, Frank's time is running out. In this position, black has a check that hits both the king and the rook. And I got news for you. If this move had happened, I think Frank would have seen the check and he would have ran. Coming back to defend yourself is a miracle move here for white. I mean, if black had found queen b5, I am not certain at all that this game would have been would have been a win for white. Instead, black played a5, and the game is over. Frank now, like a knight on a beautiful white horse, after queen takes d6, gallops into the black position and lands the fatal knockout punch. There is queen to h8, mate, just follow the yellow brick road, or there is rook back to e7, and the black king cannot escape. The black king no longer has a single legal move. He is hanging on the edge of a cliff. One touch of a finger, of a pinky, if you will land the king on the opposite side of the cliff. And Frank takes the pawn. Frank spent 23 seconds. He did not find queen h8. He did not find rook e7. He took on f6. Now, queen to b5 check still attacks both of these things, but now rook to h8 and queen to h8 and rook to e7 are all still possible. And I have news for you. Black didn't stop any of those moves. Black did not stop any of those moves. Queen to the corner, rook to the corner are both mate by accident. Give a check, it's mate by accident. Every single move in this position for white should be a check. You are that close to the enemy king with two absolutely massive pieces of artillery. Both of those pieces should be giving a check. Not only does Frank not give a check, he also throws the game away. Not only does he not give a check, black now doesn't have queen b5 because that would actually hang a queen. Black has the unbelievable queen to f7. The Thor hammer from the heavens would have won the rook here for black. Queen back to f7 would have been an account deleting move. If your opponent plays queen f7 here, you delete your account. But the third time is the charm. You see, Frank had mate in one. Then he had mate in one again. But sometimes the chess gods give you one more chance to prove yourself. And in this position, Frank played queen to e7, king to h6. The rook to the corner is now mate. Once again, by accident, rook to h8 is mate. But you know what they say, when you have mate in one for the fourth time, look for something better. Queen to h4 check. Now Frank finds queen to the corner, and the queen has completed her journey. Queen to g8 wins the queen. But this is mate in one. Frank the tank, the chess god, the cheeky dirty dog has risen. And we are all about to bear witness to the greatest story in chess history. Now get out of here.